how will you be remembered? And here we are not speaking to your philosophies. We are not speaking to the lifestyle that you had. We are speaking to the financial structure that you are going to leave behind for your dependents. Now, each and every one of us have got a dependent one way or another, young or old. There's someone who's dependent on you coming home with a loaf of bread. There's someone out there who's dependent on you sending them $100 every month to buy airtime or a transport fee. There's someone who's dependent on you for something. Often at times when we speak estate planning, a lot of people think we are talking sophistication. We are talking wealthy people with big estates and accounts in offshore banks everywhere around the world. But that is not true. Estate planning is what you will leave behind, a financial structure that you will leave behind for those that are dependent on you. There's a brother of yours who has been eyeing certain clothes that you wear or a certain watch that you have. The moment you pass on, you need to know that that watch will start to gain a lot of value. They call it sentimental value. That alone can cause disarray in a family. A family can fight. There can be wars over a single watch. It's about having a proper financial plan that you leave behind for your loved ones to continue living their lives the way that they were living their lives when you were around, or even better. You might be asking yourself a question: how do I ensure that structure is put in place? Truth is, there are different ways of putting the structures in place, and these ways will vary from one person to the other, depending on the family setting they come from. At times, as a parent, you have two children. The automatic thing to do when you think of how you are going to leave an inheritance for them is to say, I'm going to split for them 50-50. But it's way more complex than that. How do you know your children? Maybe one of the kids is more responsible than the other. How is 50-50 going to ensure that their future is well taken care of? If you have 100,000 and you split it 50-50 between your two children, one might be well off for life. One might die the same night because they'll be at a bar somewhere because of how reckless they are. But you know your children, and you thought that it was a proper financial structure to leave 50-50 money for your children. Some of you might be thinking, I've already built houses for them. I have 3 kids, each and every one of them would be left with a house. My kids will be set for life. Who says that your kids even love the structures that you have built? What are the chances that each and every one of those kids, once you have passed, they will sell those properties, get the cash, and they will squander the money? Is that how you want to be remembered? Estate planning is a sophisticated thing. And for everyone who hasn't understood the principles of wealth creation, they always get this final principle wrong. Because everyone thinks that you can build, you can accumulate, and then you can apportion against certain percentages and the family will be well off. Let me tell you a simple truth about what has happened to a lot of families. And I'll give you a practical example of what I've seen in my own life. I had a friend in varsity. At the time, he was young, a brilliant young man. He was doing his master's in sciences. When we were doing our final year, he had lost his parents earlier on when he was at high school. And he understood very well that the moment he turns 21, he will be of age and he will be able now to have access to everything that was left to him. In the meantime, his uncle was the guardian of all of those properties. So he always released bits and bits of money. When he started his first year, he couldn't focus at school. Every time when he received the money, because nobody had ever taught him about money, all of a sudden he's receiving all these lump sums. He was buying clothes, always going out partying. He gets addicted now to the lifestyle. And then at one point, the uncle says, no, we need to put a stop to us giving you money. We have to wait for you until you actually turn 21. The young man gets upset. He's frustrated. He knows that the money is his. He doesn't understand why he's been given restrictions to his own money. He makes a decision on the spot. He kills the uncle. The young man goes to jail. It's been over 15 years now. He's still in jail. He was left with 3 properties in the capital city of Gaborone. He was left with over 2 million in cash, but he has never gotten to enjoy any of that because the parents thought it was enough and it can sustain the child for life. If you as a parent cannot live in harmony with 1 million, how do you think a child who has never worked for that money can live in harmony with 1 million? Totally impossible. We create plans to disrupt, distract, and damage our kids by not understanding this principle of estate planning. This principle is way greater than we think. Once we have mastered all the other principles of wealth creation, we have done well. But the final piece is to set up a financial structure that is so solid that it will continue to fend for our children and our children's children for the years to come. The good book says that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And when it says that, it's speaking about the sophistication of structuring an estate, because it's not sophisticated enough if it's only left for your children. So it says your children's children. How can you sustain an estate to the next generations? I always say that at times it's so unfortunate that as a parent, God can bless you with kids who are so irresponsible. But then he gives you a blessing of having grandchildren who are so responsible. How do you then protect the estate against the irresponsible children, which are your primary beneficiaries? That is estate planning. I've heard a definition from one good estate planning lawyer who says that estate planning is not about allocation of resources. Estate planning is creating a structure that will ensure that the family stays glued together. It does not split. When you say you take that million, you take that house, you take that car, you are splitting the family. After you, there will be no family. But with a proper estate plan, you can be able to bring them together always, and there will be a structure that they can depend on. How do you do that? 1, there's a process of writing a will. A will is an instrument. It's a legal instrument that you use to write your instructions, your will, how you want things to be when you are not around. It's not a piece of paper where you write, Tabo takes 10%, Karabo takes 100%, Cynthia takes 50%. It's not that. It's where you write your will, where you can state that I want all of my children to continue loving each other and protecting one another. If there's any sign that these children have departed from this instruction, I want everything that I have left for them to be forfeited, to go to charity. Those are instructions that can be set up in a will. And the nice thing about a will is that it's the last instruction that you write, and you can't change your ways after that instruction. Maybe when you were alive, you used to change things. You used to say, I'll beat you, and then you don't. You will say, I'll punish you, and then you don't. But with a will, you write once and it's final. The second way of taking care of an estate is through trusts. There are different types of trusts that can be used to arrange your estate. And why do most people use trusts? They use trust because with a will, it can only be read once you have departed. But with a trust, it can be created while you are still alive, and it can be read and understood by your beneficiaries, being your children, on how things are going to be even when you are not around. You say, from my pension of 1 million, from a few of my savings of another 1 million, from my investments of another 1 million, let's say 3 million. I want all of this money to be held in a trust. I want this money to be invested in a fund with instructions of how much the fund needs to be making in returns every year. You can stipulate that. And then the trustees will know better that if this fund is not performing, the instructions on the trust are saying that we should be moving the funds to this and this and this. You put further instructions to say that of my 2 children, Every year they will split the proceeds of the interest that would have been made from that fund of 3 million. If it makes 10% as a return, that will be 300,000 that will be paid out to your children. Split 150,000, 150,000. You can further put on instructions to say that I want these children, when they get to this age, for them to access the 150,000, I want them to prove to the trustees that they have found employment. I don't care what employment it is, as long as they can sustain that employment by the end of the year. And they can also show that every month they are saving 20% of what they earn. Failure to do that, they forfeit their share for that year. These are instructions. You are guiding your children even when you are not around. Further instructions can say you will earn that money until you reach a certain age. If you are not married by that age, you forfeit your part of those returns. If you have children, the money will start moving to your children from this age. All of these things can be set up in a trust. Now, the best way to ensure that these instruments are done properly is through a registered attorney, and these wills have to be registered with the High Court. These trusts have to be registered, they have to be legal, because with an attorney, an experienced attorney, they can guide you on different types of scenarios that might happen to cushion yourself against the risk of falling outside of the law. They will advise you, if you want this person to be the guardian to your children, what if they die before you? What if the second one dies before you? What if you don't die? You become incapacitated. You can't talk, you can't walk. Who makes a decision whether the machines have to be switched on or off? That is all part of estate planning. This is for everyone who has got good intentions to ensure that they leave a good legacy for the ones behind them. It is not as simple as saying, I have built a house, I have left some money. It's way more complicated than that. Now, once you have understood all of these principles of wealth creation and you cement them with a proper estate plan, now you know that you have created wealth and your legacy will live on. You will be remembered for generations to come. Your pictures will be on the walls of your children and your grandchildren. You will not cease to exist in their lives and in their memories. You will continue to pay them 100 years from the time you died. We know that legends like John D. Rockefeller, his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren are still benefiting from his estate because of the structure that he did before he died in the early 1900s. You can also do that. Let's make sure that we set up solid financial structures and plans for generations to come.